going to take the next segment of the morning to have a series of interviews and Verge talks. One of the themes running through this is going to be about climate and data. And to start it off, we're going to identify our keyboard, apparently. Please identify your keyboard as we, for the next few minutes. Let's get that going here. Guys, to kick it off, we're going to I'm going to invite Tom Liberto, who is a meteorologist and America's first and still only America's climate idol, to talk about what climate data means for business. Tom Liberto.
Thanks, Joel.
Welcome, Tom.
Thanks. Hello. So our extreme future, obviously it's something that a lot of us care about, and especially to those of us who are trying to understand our atmosphere. I personally work on the intersection of weather and climate, forecasting flooding and droughts for the developing world, but to friends and family, they know me more as their personal, always-on-call meteorologist. And as someone who's routinely tasked with providing custom and often ridiculous forecasts, who better to talk about climate predictions than me, a meteorologist? And unlike your nightly weatherman, I won't even break into the middle of scandal to tell you what's going on. Now, usually when I come up with a talk about climate change, I first go down the rabbit hole that is the internet, which frankly often results in some sadness. First, because you quickly learn that climate change impacts are not fairly distributed across the globe, and secondly, towards comment sections. But I have come up with a foolproof way of getting through whenever climate's ever got you down. To keep this in mind, that I feel taps into the true purpose of the internet. So remember, when anything's ever got you down, there's always a tumbler full of puppies out there for you to go to. Because there are going to be big challenges ahead, with major changes to our climate system that could affect billions. But don't go Google searching for puppies just yet. Humans have shown an amazing ability to overcome challenges in the past, so why not climate change? But first, we need to know what those challenges and impacts are. What will be throwing enough greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to raise levels to likes not seen for millions of years due to our climate? Hint, not good things. But there are some clear signals that come out of treating the atmosphere like a garbage dump. Temperatures are going to increase everywhere. The same goes for sea surface temperatures and the length of heat waves. And honestly, personal observation, these maps always look like a color by number picture, where you're only allowed to use the color red when you're doing any of these things. So what type of challenges do these changes pose? Well, just name the industry and you get a whole different set of issues. Public health-wise, we could see an increase in the United States of heat-related deaths of 3,000 to 27,000 people by the middle part of the century. In New York City alone, heat-related mortality could increase by 90% by 2080. The energy industry will have to do with increasing power demand, while infrastructure will deal with higher temperatures, buckling roads, and thawing permafrost, and kinking railroads. Rising sea surface temperatures will lead species to places they've never been, like the lionfish all up and down the East Coast, or lead to dangerous blooms of red tide, which kill all sorts of marine life, as well as jellyfish swarms, which have actually been known to clog intake pipes to nuclear reactors, shutting them down. And this isn't even getting into the impacts on agriculture that high rising temperatures can have, as previous areas of production might not be as productive in the future. But all right, that was my most depressing part of the talk. I do, just in case anyone, here's a puppy break. That's an adorable puppy break. Spirits are raised, on we go. Precipitation. Climate change is like giving the atmosphere an extra quarter to upgrade from a medium to a large soda at a movie theater. Warmer air holds more water in it, which means heavier rainfall events are going to increase. With events seen every 20 years happening every 5 to 15 years, that's weird, 5 to 15 years in the future. And why does that cause issues? Well, there's a lot more pavement out there, a lot less soil, which means more flooding, like that seen recently in Phoenix, Arizona. And on the flip side, we could see drought intensify overall in certain places, including the Southwest United States. Although I don't think in California I have to tell people about the impacts a lack of water has on anything. Now, another impact that gets less talked about is sea level rise. Globally, projections are 1 to 4 feet by the end of the century. Coastal infrastructure could be swamped within 50 to 100 years. But you don't have to wait that long. Parts of Miami flood now during high tide. And with 4 feet of sea level rise, South Beach goes from ocean adjacent to ocean always, affecting tons and tons of people. Of course, this hasn't stopped people from actually moving to the shore. From 1990 to 2010, 2.2 million new homes were built along the seashore in the United States, a third of which were in Florida. Yes, the sandy appendage that sticks out into the heart of the hurricane-prone tropics. And with a total population of 4.8 million living along the Florida coastline, that's like moving the state of Alabama to the shores of Florida. Not a great idea. And of course, there are the impacts we don't know about. What exactly is going to happen to hurricane frequency? How exactly are tornadoes going to change? Which all just means that society will have to be flexible in its planning in the future, able to adjust to new science as we learn it. So you can see how depressing this can be if you let it. But you shouldn't. Will dealing with climate change be hard? Yes, but it's a challenge we should accept with open arms. Otherwise, the only thing we'll be doing with those arms is swimming. So how can we begin to look at climate change and weather, as well as the type of data that's available? Luckily, there's a ton of valuable data already out there. In fact, a government report found that usually we spend around $5 billion a year on weather forecasts and data, yet they're actually worth over $31 billion, a huge return on your investment. That's like giving someone some money to buy a bottle of wine, and they come back the owners of the winery. So how can we begin to use this tremendously valuable and large amounts of data? There are a couple of ways. First is what I like to call in planning, using climate data to plan ahead, to adapt, to lower our greenhouse gas emissions, to think up new business ideas to speed that process up. The first place you need to go is climate.gov for any and all data and climate needs. Basically, whether you're looking into the past or into the future, this is the place to get any free data available. But if you want an actual report, you can go to places like the U.S. Global Change Research Program, which have specific reports looking at climate impacts in the United States, or universities. The University of Cambridge has taken those projections and applied them to specific sectors. There are nonprofits like Climate Central, which have entire websites dedicated to sea level rise, while reinsurance industries have detailed climate impact reports. In fact, there are even local governments, just to name a couple here, Washington, D.C. and New York City, which have thorough sustainability plans. So using climate data to plan ahead can be done, and obviously is being done all across the globe. Now, the second way we can look at data is what I like to call in warning. This is more in my wheelhouse. This is using actual data during real events to see if all of that planning is actually useful at all. I'm talking weather forecasts and radars and observations and satellites. How can we use these in real-time settings to make the best decisions on short timescales? And more importantly, to get people to pay attention. And really, the opportunities here are pretty substantial, because right now people have more access to weather data than they've had ever. In fact, a recent survey found that people check their weather forecast daily on average 3.8 times a day. Here's my list of things I don't do 3.8 times a day. Please note that people check their weather forecast more than I, a meteorologist, actually make a weather forecast on any individual day. So what is the reason for all of this newfound interest in weather and data? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's well-spoken meteorologists. You shouldn't be laughing. No, all right, fine. All right. Honestly, it's increasing technology like cell phones. Basically, we went to the moon with this technology. Now we use it for the explicit purpose of taking selfies. It's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind's narcissism. But businesses have had better ideas. They've taken freely available data, repackaged it, and put it out for the public good and made some good money off it. As an example, here are just some very, very popular weather apps that I'm sure many of you have on your phones. And this increase in technology and social media and cell phone use have opened up completely new avenues for communicating weather and climate information across sector. Another example is the app MPing. This is from the National Severe Storm Laboratory. It asks its users to tell them what weather is going on where they are at any individual time. This data is then used to validate weather radars, as well as increase the number of observations for weather forecasters. Basically crowdsourcing weather reports that any of you can go onto their website right now and follow along. The phones themselves are also becoming instruments with the latest features on iPhones and Androids, as well as scientists using phones to improve temperature and rainfall observations, potentially one day turning a phone into a mobile weather observation that could be incorporated into weather and climate models, improving forecasts and really revolutionizing the field. And this could be huge across the developing world, including Africa, where there just honestly aren't a lot of observations. In fact, there are very few weather radars in the entire continent of Africa, and the vast majority of the working ones are in South Africa. That's like putting the only working weather radars in the continental United States in New Mexico. And since the developing world will be some of the hardest hit places thanks to climate change, monitoring will be so important. But looking at raw data is one thing. Following all of actual events as they happen is another. And to that, we have to look to emergency managers. And this is a tool I look at every single day for my job. It's from the Pacific Disaster Center. It's their Disaster Aware tool. It's a global tool that's freely available that plots any hazard that could be deemed hazardous to people, places, or things across the globe. And it's updated by the minute, and you can get it on your phone. If you want more flexibility, you can go to a nonprofit tech group like Ushadi, which basically allow you to crowdsource information and plot it onto an individual map. Because in the future, with a warming world and changing weather extremes, being able to plan ahead and being able to follow along with an event as it actually happens will be incredibly important. Because I envision a future where people don't just receive weather and climate information, but they're a part of this ever-growing interconnected network of whether it's businesses or people or scientists or emergency managers or governments. But you have to remember, just because technology will help us solve challenges in the future, people decide how bad those challenges will get. We have the tools now. We simply just need the will. Because the next time I'm Google searching for adorable puppy gifs, I'd rather it just be for fun. All right, thanks, guys.